Yeah, broadcast is live.
Yep. Okay, so I'm here live with John Pierpoint, who is one of our contributors to Music Street Journal, and we're doing this in celebration of 25 years of Music Street Journal. And I will say it's a pleasure for me because I've known John online for years and years. And this is the first time we've ever gotten to actually speak like this. So this is
right. It's the first time I've heard your voice, apart from that one video I watched on Facebook a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah. So let's talk about, because I remember I don't remember details, but I do remember sort of how you got writing for Music Street Journal. What do you remember about it?
Not a lot, unfortunately. I've got a bad memory anyway. I mean, I was early today, I was just trying to remember a few key points in case they come up as questions. And I never thought of that one. I can't quite remember how we got hooked up now, whether you happened to review one of our CDs and then I started corresponding with you, or whether it was through some other means.
I believe it was the first one. I think we kept in touch after I had reviewed a couple of your albums, and then at one point I think you suggested maybe you could write something up on an album or something. And I think I was like, yeah, by all means, do it. I'd love to have you write for us. And that was the beginning of that, I think. I just don't remember when it was. It's been a while, though.
It's been some time, yeah. I mean, the fact that you kept MSJ going for so long is fantastic. 25 years, he's unbelievable. And I've been around for, more than 5 years, I think. I'm not sure. I can't remember.
Yeah, I think probably more like 10, I think.
Really?
I think so. I could have, I should have actually gone and looked back at the various issues and seen, but I didn't do that. So bad me, I didn't do my homework.
Yeah, I should have really. I should have known that question was going to come up. I've got a head like a sieve, though. I can't remember anything. I can't remember what happened last week, let alone what happened 10 years ago.
So we mentioned, reviewing your CDs. And so why don't you tell everybody about, you're actually in two bands that I know of, unless you've got some other projects that I don't know about. But you're a fellow bass player, which is cool. And so why don't you talk a little bit about the bands you're in?
Yeah, certainly. Right, I'm in two groups at the moment, and they're quite different. One is 1912, and that's a traditional, for want of a better word, prog rock band. Although sort of going more towards sort of intelligent pop, as you found out when you reviewed our last one, we've changed a little bit. So that's 5-piece. We're all from the sort of Birmingham, Solihull area here in England. And we've known each other for years. I've certainly played with drummer Doug in a couple of bands before, stretching back decades. And I've known the other guys for almost as long as well. So it's almost natural that we get into a group together. It's all very well written music, very well arranged, meticulously organised, beautifully played, and just lately is particularly really hot on the multi-part vocals, the harmonies. Gary and Doug and Al as well. Al sings as well. Between the three of them, they lay out some beautiful vocals. And you wait to hear album number 5. It's about halfway through now, and it's even more going that direction. So it used to be guitar, bass, drums, 2 keyboards. Well, 1 keyboard player and the singer also played guitar and keyboards. Our keyboard player Alex had some difficulties a few years ago, and he's had to sort of rein back on playing keyboards, mostly lugging huge heavy keyboards around to gigs. It just wasn't practical. So he rediscovered his love for guitar. He's a fine guitarist as well, and he plays in other groups playing guitar and bass. He's multi-instrumentalist. So Al had to drop out for a bit for those reasons, and then when he came back on guitar. So now we've got this twin guitar sound, which it's opened up a whole new sound for us. It's more, initially we started doing more sort of Deep Purple style music, which is great. I love that. I love that.
Oh yeah.
We've sort of mellowed a little bit, and we're now doing well, all sorts of things really. As you realise when you reviewed the last album, we've moved on quite a bit from the old prog rock stuff, which I still love doing. And quick plug, the band will be playing on 25th of this month. That's this Saturday at HMV in Solihull. If anyone in the UK is watching this, listening, want to come along, it's free. Starts at 2 p.m. I won't be there, unfortunately. I won't be playing due to various problems at home, family, medical problems. I haven't been able to turn up for rehearsals for the best part of 6 months now. So luckily we've got our guitarist Gavin's son, Charlie, who's taking over on bass for this gig. So I'm sure it will all go down really well. If all goes well, I will be there, but as a member of the audience. Maybe just cheering them on and filming them. Hopefully I'll be back in the group soon, though, and doing something. Okay, so that's 1912. I suppose I should also... Where is it? I thought I'd come prepared, and I haven't sorted it. Where are they? I've got it. Where is it? I was going to do this all nice and smooth. There we go.
And I could have been prepared and gotten them out this time.
I haven't even unwrapped it yet. So the other group I'm in is quite different. That's Omen Opus. And that started off when I got in touch with a friend of Doug, our drummer's, Lee Potts, who's known. He's played in groups with Doug for years, going back to what, 70s probably. And he's a musician, a songwriter, and an artist in his own right. And he does things using sequencers and software and that, very much more modern, electronic, industrial sound. But we got introduced and decided to collaborate. And starting off by he reworked some of my demo tunes and demo songs into complete pieces, because they were all a bit sort of rough 4-track recordings. And he got some more musicians involved. I'm trying to think, there's Sheridan Starr from Atlanta, and Bridget Wishart from Bath, who's most known as one of your favourite groups in Hawkwind.
Yeah, we're in Hawkwind, sure.
Yeah, they are, yeah. And a few others. And there was just a core of Bridget, Lee, and myself. Sheridan came on a bit more in some of the later albums as well. So he's had a lot of input. And various other musicians, including members of 1912, all get roped in. And it's not a live group. We've never actually all met up. It's very much virtual, communicating through email and the internet and sending each other files. But Lee's the sort of orchestrator of the whole thing. He puts it all together, arranges the stuff. And as I quite often say, he turns my sow's ears into silk purses. He turns them into beautiful pieces of music. Bridget writes very well as well, so she brings a lot of music in as well. And of course, Lee does himself. So we produce these sort of industrial, electronic, psychedelic things that's very difficult to pigeonhole. And each album's been quite different. Quite often with science fiction storylines to the albums. So you got things like The Archives, which is on the camera. There we go. Which is mostly, I think that was largely based on a storyline by Sheridan, and that's worked out really well. All the album art's done by Lee as well. He's a great artist as well as a great musician and a writer as well. He writes books. I've got to plug his books because they're brilliant. He even writes children's books. He's done a few with my cousin Wanda, who's an author, and they've written picture books for children, which, well, they're not just for children. They're good for adults as well. You find them on Amazon. It's another plug. Sorry about this. And as you know, on the last but one 1912 album, we had 1912 and Open Opus together, doing a doing a double, where the second disc was actually Lee's reworkings of 1912 source tapes, master tapes, multi-tracks, into something new, bringing on some more guest musicians, some new singers. And that worked really well, I think. In fact, sometimes I prefer those versions to the originals, but depends what mood I'm in, really. So that's where we are at the moment. But going back, I mean, I've been playing music since I started late, really, about 16 when I was at college, and I've been in one or two groups, but never getting very far, never getting more than some pub gigs and things like that. Probably the most successful group I was with before 1912 and Own Opus was, strangely enough, a country rock trio called Grand Old Flag, and that was the brainchild of the guitarist Rob Brunt, who wrote just about all the songs. We used to do the usual covers that everyone expects, play all the country clubs and that. But we started to introduce our own songs, and they started to get a little bit more interesting and progressive, and we started to take it away from sort of tired old country rock stuff. So that was interesting. And the other group that I was in for quite a few years was called the Earth Movers, and that was just a good old pub rock band, with very much influenced by things like the Doors and Cult, and that. And we kept that going for quite a few years, and that was a lot of fun. They were a great bunch of guys, great people to play with, a lot of gigs. Obviously didn't get very far, but it was fun doing it.
Nice.
I think those are the main acts I've been in anyway.
I was going to say, it's kind of odd, ironic, is that you and I have never met in person, but I actually have met Bridget once when she was here touring with Hawkwind. So,
I haven't yet, not in the flesh.
I have. You're in a band with her, and you haven't met her, and I have.
Weird, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, she probably doesn't remember meeting me, but I remember meeting her. Alan Davey introduced us because I was chatting with him for like an hour that night.
Yeah, it's weird the way it goes. I mean, of course, there's a lot of this going on now, especially lockdown, and a lot of people form groups and created music and videos and all sorts of things in lockdown. So I think that's going to carry on now. That's the way it is. We've all found how easy it is to collaborate across the internet.
And even just communicating like this was something, I mean, people did it, but they were usually like business meetings and things. And I don't think people really did a lot of video conferencing before, and they were forced to do it. And I know I had never done it before, and now I've realized how easy it is, and how you can connect people clear across the globe, and it's great.
It's amazing how well it works. I've got a background in IT, and we always used to have to set up video conferencing using ISDN, and it never worked well, never worked at all. And when people started going on about Zoom and Teams and all this and StreamYard, I thought, how can this stuff work? But it does. It works really well. It's almost idiot-proof. It's great.
Yeah, StreamYard is so simple. I absolutely love it. I've never seen anyone have a problem with it. So, and I have never initiated, but I've done several Zoom chats for interviews, and they always go really well too. It is idiot-proof, And I too had an IT background, but I never really did any video conferencing stuff before. But I could imagine just how much of a nightmare it was to do that.
It's funny, we've got a lot in common, pair of us. And you've posted lots of photographs of yourself when you were a teenager in the 70s, whatever. And you look rather like I looked then, when I had hair and hair. We're very similar. We both play bass. We both write. And
I think that's part of why like I say, we've never met, first time ever chatting, but I do think of you as a friend, in part because we have so much in common and we get along so well, so I do definitely think, and plus you own a Rickenbacker 4001. I used to have one.
I and I haven't got it in the room. It's in a case out there. Yeah. I've got. That's my very first guitar. That's an Epiphone, but it's not an Epiphone that anyone would recognise. It's actually made by Aria back in the 70s.
Nice.
And that was my 16th birthday present. I've still got it. I love it. It's a little short scale bass, but it does the job. And it's I'll show you. You might recognise the pickups. You might recognise that one.
Oh yeah.
But that's a Rickenbacker pickup under there as well.
Wow.
When I got the new Seymour Duncan pickups in the Rick, I thought, what am I going to do with those old pickups? And the pickups on the Epiphone weren't very good, so I thought, right, well, they're going in there.
One of my biggest regrets is having sold my Rick, because I so wish I had it. And then I actually wound up a few years ago, I tracked down the guy I sold it to see if he would sell it back to me. And he had it, and somebody broke into his apartment and stole it. So he doesn't even have it anymore.
Oh, that's the way it goes. And they're worth so much now.
Oh, I know. It was funny, because when I sold it, I think I sold it for $250, $300. And within a year, the prices on them just skyrocketed. And that thing would have sold for $1,000,
Yeah, I can believe it. I mean, brand new now, they're costing $2,500, aren't they?
Yeah, they're outrageous.
I mean,
they're outrageous.
That's amazing.
My first bass was a Tysco bass, which I still love. That was a great bass. I wound up tearing that thing apart because I was going to rewire it stereo, and it was well above my technical ability, and it sat in parts for a long time, and eventually I lost all the parts.
Oh. Yeah, I've got a Flying V like that. It's been in bits for so long, I keep thinking, have I got all the bits? It's homemade, and it's a project that's been passed from person to person for decades. I had it off my brother, he had it off a friend, he had it off somebody else. And originally it was somebody just took a Flying V, stuck it on a big lump of wood, drew round it, and then cut out this other piece of wood. And it's actually made of, the wood is actually made of lots of pieces of furniture, basically glued together. It's a huge chunk of mahogany. I did actually finish it one time, and then I lent the bridge, gave the bridge to a friend who broken the bridge on his Strat. And I said, "Joe, you can have this one. I'll get another one." And then I didn't. Al gave me a bridge a couple of years back, saying, "You can have this one. That'll fit." And that was when I realised that Strat bridges are not all alike. There's at least 3 different sizes now. So I thought, well, do I re-cut holes in the V to protect the new bridge, or do I just put that to one side and get another bridge? Because you can buy cheap ones, can't you?
No.
So I think I'm going to do that. I just haven't got around to it yet.
Yeah, bridge is one of the most important pieces.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. But there are some very cheap ones that you can get that will probably do the job. And I mean, the pickup I've got for it only cost me $5. So admittedly, $5 back in 1980, so it's probably worth a bit more now. But it's not an expensive pickup. But I'd just like to get it finished. It was all ready to go. I've got my brother used to work in a place that could do laser cutting, and he laser cut me a custom mirror finish stainless steel scratch plate for that. So I want it on. I want to see it with that scratch plate on. It's going to look fantastic.
Oh wow! Yeah, I always wanted to do a bass out of acrylic and have lights wired up inside of it. And remember those old color cord organs? They would light up different colors depending on the frequency of the sound.
Ah, yeah.
I wanted it wired like that, so depending on what note you were hitting, it would light a different color. But I never got around to doing that. It was, again, well above my ability.
It's probably easier now, though. You just embed a Raspberry Pi or an Arduino in it and get that program to do the LEDs for you.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's more possible than easy to do, for a home hobbyist point of view than it used to be.
That's true.
I've seen videos of people making costumes with LEDs that change colours, when they tap certain parts of it. So
yeah, I've seen that too, and they've got I saw, talking about that, it's a little different, but I saw that there were actually companies that have fabric that is like a TV screen, and you can send a video signal to the fabric.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it was prototype, and they had them at like some electronics shows maybe 7 or 8 years ago. The fact that they haven't hit the market tells me either they haven't been able to scale them down price wise to make it viable, or something was wrong and they didn't work quite right once they got past prototype. But
yeah, they probably couldn't cope with the rough handling, that clothes get. They probably worked and then broke. Yeah.
You probably could never wash them, even dry clean.
Yes.
Would probably destroy it. But yeah, I remember they were saying that you could have band shirts where it would have a live clip from the band, or you could have a movie shirt and it would show a little part of the movie, and it would have been great if it worked. And who knows, maybe they will get it one of these days.
Yeah, someone will come up with the answer, and before you know it, they'll be coming free with your album or something. They'll scale the price down so much that's their giveaway. That'd be something.
Yeah, they had that was about the same time they were having roll-up TVs that you could just take your TV and roll it up, carry it away, and then when you got someplace, put it back up on the wall. And again, that didn't hit the market either that I know of. So I'm guessing that there was an issue with that as well. But I think at the time when they had them at the electronics show, I think they said they were going to be selling for something like $10,000. So obviously they couldn't scale down the price to get it affordable.
Mm.
Maybe Elon Musk has one in his house. I don't know. But so now let's talk a little bit. You've got, it's funny. Everybody who writes for Music Street Journal has their own sort of musical tastes and their own sort of directions they go in. Now, why don't you talk a little bit about sort of how you got into listening to music and sort of your favorites and the kinds of stuff you like?
How long have we got?
Well, try to do a little condensed version, but hey, have fun. We got time.
I could rattle on all night, but I mean, basically, if you wanted to put it in a nutshell, it's prog. I love progressive, but my taste's a little wider than that, but not that much. It's like when I read books, I read science fiction. That's it, basically. A couple of things either side, but I'm pretty much one thing. When I was young, it was in the 70s. I'd listen to pop music, and I'd get my mum to buy me the pop singles. And at them days, it was stuff like glam rock. I love Slade, Swede, all that sort of stuff. Then I got into sort of late teens. I got into ELO, and obviously at that time they were very big. It was Out of the Blue was the current album, and they're very, very huge. And, the big spaceship stage and all that sort of stuff. And I won a record voucher on the local radio station, and I went out and bought a box set called 3 Light Years, which got their first 3 Jet albums on. And I was actually thought they were even better than the sort of the pop stuff they were doing by the time they got to Out of the Blue. So talking about things like On the Third Day, Eldorado, Face the Music. And I suppose that was my first taste of prog, really, because what I didn't realise at the time was that the stuff that I liked was sort of dim echoes of what was going on elsewhere outside of the charts, all the prog rock, which I'd never heard at that point. So it's when I left school, got to sixth form college, met loads of new friends who were all into rock music. They introduced me to all the good stuff. So, in those 2 years, I just got deluged with sort of heavy metal, rock, progressive, folk, all that sort of stuff. And that's where I started listening to, obviously, Zeppelin, Rush, Yes, Deep Purple, Genesis, all that stuff. and I loved it. Started going to concerts. First concert I saw. Now I can't remember exactly which order they came with. But in one year, it was either, and you'll like this, it was either Yes on the drama tour, or it might have been Sky. You might not be aware of Sky.
Actually, I reviewed a box set that had all their albums on it.
Oh well, this is the time Sky 2, which I think is their best ever album. It's the one I always play. The first one's good. And after that, sort of, I don't know, it didn't seem to go so well. But Sky 2 just ticks all the boxes. It's absolutely brilliant. And the other band it might have been that I saw first off was, believe it or not, Triumph.
Wow.
The Canadian trio, and I think they only came over there once, and I was lucky to catch them. And that was something. I've loved them ever since. They done the first few albums they did were fantastic. After that, they went a bit sort of stadium rock, which wasn't so much to my taste. But those first 3 or 4 albums are absolutely brilliant. Especially the third one, Just Again. That's my recommendation. If you're going to listen to any Tribe, listen to Just Again. It's wonderful. And of course, I've got to mention Tribe. The other group I got into was Rush, and so I went to see Rush on the Moving Pictures tour. And that was an eye opener. Just couldn't believe it. That they could actually sound like the record. Just 3 guys, no overdubs. Just 3 guys, and Geddy handling the synths, the bass pedals, the vocals, and the bass all in one go. Wonderful, absolutely wonderful. They just blew my mind. So that was it. Once I was onto that, it was all prog rock, and particularly Yes. I mean, Yes has been my. I know you feel this as well. Yes has been my number one band for a long time. Hawkwind less so. I did see them a couple of times. I've never been that keen on them. Sorry, Bridget, if you're watching. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I like them, but not as much as the other acts. I don't know. Perhaps I just got the wrong mindset. Hawkwind have got that particular psychedelic vibe, which I like, but I prefer my prog. So that's what I'm into. Deep Purple. I didn't get into Deep Purple until much later. Obviously, I knew about them and I liked them, but I didn't really get into them until much later. And I was really glad I actually managed to get to see them while Richie Blackmore was still with them on the Hell or High Water tour, his last tour. But they've been good since. Steve Morse is a fantastic guitarist, so I've seen him a few times since, and I've always enjoyed him.
You want to hear something funny was, Larry Toring, or Toring, I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name, because, again, I've never actually talked to the guy, just he writes for Music Journal. I've seen his name spelled out. But Larry is a huge Deep Purple guy, right? And I used to email with Steve Morse quite a bit and covered a lot of his stuff before he was in Deep Purple. And Larry told me that he was backstage at a Deep Purple show, and he told Steve that he was writing for Music Street Journal, and Steve's like, "Oh, tell Gary I said hi."
Brilliant. That's when you know you've arrived.
I was like, "Really? He told you that?" He's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Well, that's really cool."
That's great, because you can imagine they must talk to an awful lot of rock journalists over there.
Yeah.
So he's remembered you. You obviously made an impression.
Yeah. So I guess he's out of Purple now though, because of his wife's cancer.
It's very sad. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, great. They've got Simon McBride in. That's great, but I feel for him, and it's. We'll see what happens, but he's also got bad arthritis, hasn't he?
I think that they released. I mean, with Stephen. I mean, nothing bad to be said about Richie Blackmore. Richie Blackmore was an amazing guitarist, still is an amazing guitarist. But I think, with Steve Morse in the band, they did some of the proggiest things they've ever done, and pretty amazing stuff.
Yeah, I've got to admit, I didn't keep up with them all the way. I sort of lost track, but that's largely because the way things have been, I don't buy records much. I don't listen to music much. I don't go to concerts much. That's why you haven't had so many reviews out of me in the last few years. Maybe in the future I can get back onto that, but at the moment, personal circumstances mean I can't really do any of that.
Right.
And it's a shame, really. I mean, maybe also it's due to the fact that so many of the groups that I liked are now, well, to be frank, a lot of them are dying, aren't they? They're just not, they're losing members left, right, and centre. It's got to happen. I know, we talk about people in the 70s now, in their 80s, but it's still sad. When Alan White died last year, it was like, oh, well, that's it. I don't think I'm going to bother to see Yes again. It's just not going to be the same.
I had a lot of trouble when Squire died. I couldn't listen to Yes for probably 2 months. It wasn't as long with Alan, which is kind of odd because I met both of those guys several times, but Alan was one of the nicest guys you could ever meet. He was just, so it was like I really felt sort of an attachment to him, even though I'd met him, just a handful of times. And I did interview him on the phone once, and he was just so nice. So it was like that one really hit pretty hard.
Yeah, and he's also, I mean, this was spelled out in one of the recent concerts. Well, recent, it's probably only about 15, 20 years ago. Explaining how much Alan White actually wrote with Yes, a lot more than he's credited for. At the time, I think they were doing the orchestral tour, Magnification, and there was the big epic number on that, In the Presence Of. He wrote a lot of that.
Yes, he did.
So,
and I think if I recall correctly on that tour, I think he started playing the piano on that.
That's right, yeah. He started off they had a little keyboard next to him, and he started the whole tune off. But apparently, even going back to the 70s, he had a huge input in the writing of a lot of the songs. So, he's a very big force in Yes. And like yourself,
he played with 2 Beatles, I think.
Well, he famously played with the Plastic Ono band, didn't he?
Right, and I think he's also on a George Harrison album, but I could be wrong about that.
I wouldn't be surprised. I very much wouldn't be surprised. I mean, he's played with everybody, hasn't he? He was one of the top session musicians before he joined Yes. But that's was it the Live Peace concerts? I mean, famously, his rehearsal was playing the backs of the chairs in the airplane flying over there with his drumsticks.
Yeah, he's on. I believe he plays on the Imagine album.
Yes,
I'm sure he does. In fact, I saw some video footage behind the scenes. I was watching. I don't remember what video I was watching, and they had some behind the scenes footage when they were making that album, and you could clearly see Alan in several of the takes.
Yeah, and of course we lost Neil Peart as well. That was a bad one. I've got to admit though that like yourself, it's when Chris Squire died. I thought, oh my God, this is partly because it's so unexpected. I think as well because at the time it seemed like it was just going to be a bit of a setback, and he'd be back on the ball later and gigging. I don't think he realised he was as ill as he was.
No, although right until. My understanding is until very close to when he died, within a few days, maybe. I remember he talked to John Anderson just before he passed away, which I don't think they talked much up until that point. And they sort of buried the hatchet and chatted a while. I think at the end he knew, but I don't think he knew until maybe a week or two before. I remember he talked to Billy too, and I think Billy said that, it was obvious that Chris knew, but it just sort of found out.
Yeah.
I think
we've got a lot more of that to come, haven't we?
What's that?
We've got a lot more of that to come, haven't we, with all our heroes?
The funny one that really, really caught me by surprise was Lemmy. Because for some reason I thought Lemmy was immortal. I didn't think
It was that famous quote he did, wasn't it? He says, just carry on breathing, there's nothing to it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, he was another one that it was so sudden because he hadn't been diagnosed, and then he was diagnosed, and he was dead, within a week or so. I think
Hmm.
it was crazy. So I don't know. Yeah, we're losing a lot of them. I don't know. There are going to be some that are going to hit really hard when they happen. So let's hope it's a long ways off.
Yes.
So,
But
who
there you
out of
go.
curiosity now? For me, you mentioned Squire hitting really hard, and part of why Squire hitting really hard was the fact that he was one of my biggest influences as a bass player. In fact, I remember the first time I got to see him up close live, and watching him play. And I remember I used to get bandmates who would be like, "Why do you play your bass up so high? Why don't you just play the notes down low?" And I watched Squire, and I'm like, that's why I do it. I learned playing his stuff.
Yeah.
And so, who were your big bass uh,
Well,
reference
it's probably
points?
the same as you. It's Squire number one, and Geddy Lee.
Oh
Um,
yeah, Geddy Lee's amazing too.
and two totally different styles as well.
Oh
Same
yeah,
bass, different styles. I mean, I know
yeah,
Geddy switched to a jazz, but to me, he did all his best work on a Rick. Um,
I agree.
and that tone he got out of it, my God. I'll never forget actually standing outside the Bingley Hall, Stafford, which is before they started building all the big stadia. That was the place you go to see the big bands, and it's a cowshed we call it because it's a huge square metal frames with metal line building. I remember standing
Horrible
outside
acoustics,
seeing.
right?
Sorry.
Horrible acoustics, right?
Yes, yes, pretty bad. Although some of the new ones they built are just as bad. But having said that, it was one of the few places we could go to and to see where they could get a lot of people in to see the big bands. And I remember standing outside waiting to go in. I could hear his bass being sound checked, and my God, what a sound! I mean, that was just. I just wanted to get in there and hear it. I thought I've got to hear that. Um, he got such a lovely tone out of that, Rick. And yes, I know he prefers the jazz, and perhaps for his later style, it's a more elegant instruments than that. But the, the tone he got from that Rick was just superb. I'd love to know how he did it.
Well, I know. I think a lot of the guys that moved away from Rickenbackers, and you know this as well as I do, I think part of the reason they did so is those things are so neck heavy that if you have it strapped on your shoulder for too long, your shoulder hurts like hell.
True, but I've got a jazz as well, and that is just heavy. Full stop.
Oh,
It's
really?
I mean, it's a fretless jazz. It wasn't originally fretless, but the previous owner, who's a good friend of mine, took them out, and I left them out. And I thought, well, it's my chance to learn fretless, isn't it? And actually put the Rick to one side and played the fretless for most of the time I was with Randolph Flagg, just to force myself to play it because I'm still not very good at fretless. I've got to admit, it's an art, and I just haven't got it. It's the same with funk. I can't play funk slapping style at all.
I can't do that either.
I'd love to though. I'd love to learn.
I love
Make
listening to that.
because you see so many good people on the internet now playing that style, and you think, oh, I want to do that.
Yeah, it's an amazing style, but I've never been able to play it. I've tried.
But yeah, so I used the jazz for a few years, and my God, the weight of that thing. I had to have an extra wide strap just to stop it cutting into my shoulder. It's horrific. But yes, you're right. It's the balance of the Rick, isn't it? It's the way it's always pulling down on you.
Oh yeah, yeah. And let me ask you: do you run your Rick stereo or mono?
Always mono. Yeah, I only play small gigs, so
Well,
don't want to take too out.
I would say I used to run mine stereo, and I had the bass end. The bass end would go out clean to a bass amp. The guitar end or the high treble end, I would run through an overdrive processor just to get a little fuzz and run it into a guitar amp. And that was pretty cool. It was a nice sound.
Yeah, I did dabble with it, but I never actually used it, in a gigs or recording situation. Um, and, and since I put in the Seymour Duncan pickups as well, it's I don't know, it's a loud. They're much louder pickups. I'll give them that. Whether it's still got that classic Rick tone, though, I don't know. But it suits me. The 1912 guys think I should stick with the jazz, to be honest. But it's got a puny tone compared to the Rick. The Rick's just fantastic. Just lately, though, I've switched to a precision. And the only reason I've got that is because I happened to walk into a charity shop one day a couple of years ago, and there it was, 70 quid, Squire. Thought, right, we'll have that. And yeah, it's fine. It's a really good guitar. I mean, the precision as a whole is a good design because it's a full-scale bass, but it's a very short body. So it's much easier. It fits into the shape case I had for the little Epiphone over there, and that's my go-to bass at the moment. I'm fed up of lugging a flight case around. I'm getting on a bit now. The place we rehearse, you have to go up 2 flights of steps to get up to it, and it's an old industrial complex. So there are 2 flights of concrete steps, very steep.
Oh.
You don't want to be lugging too much stuff up there.
Yeah, no kidding.
So yeah, I'm into precisions now. The new album we're working on is partly I've recorded some of the parts with the Rick, but I think all the ones that remain to be recorded are probably done with precision. I'm getting used to the sound of it, the feel of it. It's an easy guitar to play, and in fact, if there's anyone listening starting off, get yourself a precision. It does everything, and it's easy.
Well, you want to know my strategy when I used to play a lot, and when I still had my Rick, I also have this really cheap violin Beatles bass copy.
Oh, yes.
And the thing I would always practice on that because the action was super high, so it was actually really hard to play. And so I figured I practiced on that, and then I'd pick up the Rick and play it, and it was just simple because that thing just played so easily. So I always think you practice on something that's hard to play, and then when you actually play on the easy thing.
That's a good idea. Yeah. I remember playing a Hofner violin bass once that a friend had. I thought, oh, this is awful. This is absolutely.
I don't know. See, and this is just a cheap copy. I don't even know what brand it is, but the action is so high on that thing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and the funny thing was somebody had taken, because it's a hollow body, and the guy I got it from, it was somebody who had it before him, took out one of the panels of wood and stuffed it with foam to keep it from feeding back. So I took all the foam out, and I was always going to replace that little panel of wood, but I never did.
Did the foam improve the sounds, by deadening it?
Not to me, it didn't. And I don't really, when I played it, I don't really notice the feedback on it that they were complaining about, I guess. So I don't know. Maybe they were trying to turn the potentiometers up too high and just getting too much sound out of it, when in fact I think you keep my trick with that was you keep the volume controls on the bass low, and then turn the amp up.
It also depends where you play it as well.
Yeah, that's probably true too. I don't know what they were doing with it, but yeah, I still have that. My friend I got it from, he was here when he was here a few years ago. I dug it out. I was like, see, I still have it.
Yeah, I think the one I tried was actually an actual Hofner.
Yeah, I've never touched an actual Hofner. I bet those are worth a fortune too.
I don't think it's any better.
No, maybe not, but I bet they're expensive.
I've got a few Hofners actually, but they're not basses. My brother used to collect them back in the days when they were not really sought after, sort of early 80s and that.
Oh yeah.
Accumulated the things, usually in really bad state of repair. Got a thing called a color armor, which has got it's sort of like a double cutaway, very, very thin body, and it's got vinyl covering. It's not painted. It's got red vinyl on it. And the guitar's in a bad state of repair, but the vinyl's complete. So I think that must make it a fair bit collectible, because I'm sure most of them got the vinyl ripped. I'd like to finish that off one day. Needs a new scratch plate and probably new pickups, but it's probably ready to go. And the other one I've got, it's upstairs at the moment. I took the frets out, and it's a fretless guitar now, just to see what's it like trying to play a fretless guitar. There's all sorts of nutters doing that these days. I thought, let's have a go. You can do certain things. I mean, some people play chords and everything on fretless guitars. I don't know how they do that.
Oh God, if you're off just a little bit of your position,
yeah, it's dreadful. It's dreadful. So you're angling your fingers, but it can be done. In fact, on it's one of the Own Opus albums, there's one track where I used it, and you can hear it's a fretless guitar on the solo. But if I remember right, the rhythm guitar that's behind the solo is also the fretless guitar, and it doesn't sound like I'm playing a fretless guitar at all. I'm just playing, and I'm playing chords. So I must have figured out how to do it at some point.
Wow. Yeah, that's impressive. I mean, the beauty of fretless, of course, is for the slides, but
yeah, and for someone I always try. Back in the day, I used to try playing bottleneck as well, and I never could get hang of that. So I thought, yeah, this might be an easy way of doing it. It's interesting. The big problem with the fretless is you don't get the sustain on the notes because you haven't got that metal to metal contact that you have with the fret.
I never thought of that. That makes sense.
Your finger, the soft fleshy part of your finger is just making it stop, and so it sort of partly mutes the sound. And everything's got a slightly dull sound to it, but that still works as well.
I've always wanted to try playing a Chapman stick, but I have not had the opportunity.
They're expensive.
They are.
The other problem is, of course, there's so many options. What do you go for? If you can afford one, you've then got to decide which particular configuration you want, and then you've got to learn it. So I don't know. I'd love to try one though. The other problem with that is any other guitar, even a guitar that's humongously expensive, you can go into a guitar shop and try it and decide if you really want it. Chapman sticks you just don't see. I suppose they're made to order. Well,
I have a hunch. I don't know about the guitar stores or in England, but I know in the U.S. there are certain companies, Rickenbacker being one of them. Some companies will let the stores buy the stuff on basically 90 days. They pay for them or whatever after they get them into the store. But Rickenbacker, last I heard, demands the money up front for them from the stores. And I bet Chapman stick, I bet they do that too. And you've got to put out this big chunk of cash and maybe have it sit there for months at a time,
Yeah. Be nice to try on that. And war guitars are similar as well, aren't they? But their thing is that you can actually play it like a real guitar as well.
Right.
Yeah, you can have it up there, or you can bring it down and play it like a normal guitar. I think Trey Gunn of King Crimson's the most obvious proponent of that sort of instrument. And of course, these days people do tapping on all sorts of instruments. They modify the guitars and they just tap them.
I used to call it fripping, and I would just do this on a guitar.
I can't get the hang of that yet. I'm still practicing. I'm still trying all those techniques. One day I'll get to it. I'm very basic as a guitarist, but I'd like to be able to do all that sort of flash stuff. It'd be really nice. Maybe when I get a bit more time, I can get to grips with it.
I'm very, very rusty on every instrument now. I want to get time to start playing again, but I'm so rusty.
I'm learning the drums as well. I've got a drum kit back there now. It's actually not mine. It's my son's, but he's lost interest, so I'm actually practicing on it more than he is. It's only a little electronic kit, but when I started, that's another thing. When I started, I always wanted to be a drummer, and I took lessons when I was at school with a school friend who could play drums. He played in the school band, and my brother went along with me, and we used to go to his house and have lessons. and my brother was brilliant, absolutely brilliant, picked it up just like that. Me, couldn't do it. Just couldn't separate my brain to do the hands and the feet. And
That's the problem I have. I've tried it before, and I just cannot get the two hands to do something different and the foot something else. I just can't do it.
so that's it. So I gave up, and that's why I started playing bass, really. So, largely because I wanted to be the drummer, couldn't be the drummer. A lot of friends were playing guitar. I used to join in with them, and I couldn't play guitar either because I'd never touched one before. So what do? I just pluck the four strings of lowest four strings of an acoustic guitar and hurt on playing the bass, and yeah, it sort of stuck really.
Wait, you started playing on an acoustic, just playing the lower four?
Yeah,
I did the exact same thing.
Yeah. It's uncanny, isn't it?
Yeah.
But,
I started playing guitar, and I took a few. They had at this park near me in the summer. They had these summer programs for kids that were out of school, and they had a guy who played guitar, and he taught guitar. And I took a few lessons from him. I learned a couple songs, just the chords, and then I suddenly decided to start playing bass. So I started playing on my acoustic, just like that.
Yeah. You've got to start somewhere. That's the way it goes, isn't it? You've got to start somewhere. And I think anyone who's starting out these days, that's what you got to think. Don't just go and get the instrument you think you want to play. Try them all. You don't know what you're going to be into. And you may indeed want to play all the instruments. I mean, I've got a violin now I'm having to go with.
I've always wanted to try a violin, but I never have.
It's a horrible process learning the violin. Horrible for everyone else. I've got various. I've got a mandolin. I've got a bouzouki, which is a lovely little instrument. It's an 8-string. It's not 6-string, and I only bought it because I wanted. There's a shop. It's they sell bankrupt and fire damaged stock. And they'd had loads of stocking from a music shop, and they got this beautiful an aria mandolin. And at the time, I couldn't afford it. They wanted 150 quid for it, which is okay actually. Although this is back in the 80s when 150 quid was a lot more. And hanging up next to it was this odd little instrument I've never seen before, bigger instruments, but still with the same sort of doubled up 8 strings. And it was the bouzouki, and they wanted 55 for that. So I thought, well, I can afford that now. So I got it, and wow, some lovely sounding instruments. Because you can do all the same, it's tuned like a mandolin, you can do all the same stuff, but it's easy to play because you haven't got to poke your fingers into these tiny little fret spaces and tiny little string spaces. And the way I think of it, it's more like playing a 12-string guitar. You get a 12-string guitar, but the tuning of a mandolin. And it has this strange knack, this instrument, of whatever chords you play, you can play random fingerings, and they just sound beautiful. They sound absolutely ring out, they're gorgeous. So yeah, the bouzouki is something I really like. I don't play traditional style. My partner got me a book on learning to play traditional Greek bouzouki tunes, but I never really got the hang of it. I mean, I love the Greek music, sort of Rembetika and that, but I just prefer using it like a 12-string really, and make some great sounds. The only time it's actually recorded with it was there's an open opus one called Call Your Name, and that's pretty much all the bouzouki. I sent Lee the bouzouki parts and said, do you want to do something with these? And he put them together into the tune. I'd just done all these different parts, all these riffs, and no thought about putting them together. So he assembled them into a tune. Bridget wrote some absolutely heartfelt, wonderful lyrics for it and sang them. And then he got a real drummer, David Spate, to come on and put some fantastic drums on, real acoustic drums. Because up to that point, we were all MIDI electronic and that. And honestly, I think that's possibly the best recording I've played on. It's certainly the one I'm most proud of. probably because there's a lot of me on it. You know, it's not all 100% me, but I've got a lot of input to it. You know, I did the guitar and the key and the bass as well, and it's my ringtone as well now. The bazooki tone. Every time someone sends me a message on WhatsApp now, I hear my bazooki.
Nice. So yeah, you another thing I think we have in common is I used to. Now I don't do it anymore, but it used to be if I would go to a sale or something and I would see an instrument and it would be at a decent price, I'd be like, yeah, I'm going to buy that. I have no idea how to play it, but I'll buy it. I had so many strange instruments.
I love that. I love just going and I go around charity shops all the time. It's just something I do, and I'd much rather go and buy some beat up old instrument from a charity shop than go up to the big music store and buy the posh guitar that's
Exactly
wanted. I mean, partly because I can't afford it, but
right.
That's a big. I mean, obviously, if I won the lottery tomorrow, I'd probably go out there and get a Strat or something, but or that Chapman stick.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's the thrill of discovery and finding the diamond in the rough. Something that's a bit weird, a bit unusual.
Yes, you can get so many more instruments for the same amount of money, and have different sounds at your disposal.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, my partner Julie, her mom had a little acoustic, steel strung acoustic guitar, very cheap, sort of 3/4 size one, and Julie inherited it, and she doesn't really play guitar anymore. She used to, but I just love the sound of that guitar. It's quite unique, and the nearest I can think of it, it's a bit like the sort of little acoustic guitar that Lindsey Buckingham's always playing on Fleetwood Mac songs. It's got that sort of plinky sort of sound. I really love it. I've got to do something with it one day. It's a bugger to keep in tune, but it has got that lovely, delicate sound. I keep thinking I should get rid of it, but no, I want to do something with it first, at least.
Yeah, I've got a real cheapo acoustic. My wife has a really nice acoustic, which she doesn't play anymore either. She should start playing again. Maybe she will, but she's got a really nice one. But my acoustic is very hard to keep into. I do have a decent electric. I've got a PV Les Paul copy that has a good sound and stays in tune nicely. And you still there, John?
Yeah, I'm still here. Oh,
did I froze? Yeah. It looked like you froze for a second.
Yeah, I just looked over because I'm looking at your image, and I just looked over and thought, oh, well, I've got my mouth open. My mouth's not still open. I don't know what happened there. Perhaps it's because I wasn't doing anything. The software just sort of said, "Oh, I'll freeze that one."
I think it'll freeze once in a while. Probably just network traffic or something. I don't know. I've seen it happen. I have trouble with mine because my camera goes through the USB port, and every once in a while my PC will decide that it doesn't know how to use the USB anymore. And then it's just done. It dumps me out.
Yeah, even so though, this technology is great.
It is. It's amazing. It's amazing. And like you said, you can also now, we can record via the internet, and I've been wanting to do some more of that too. Again, I have to start playing again, but
you've got to. Come on, you've got to.
Yeah, because I've been wanting for years to start collaborating with people all over the world and just do some recordings and have some fun with it. So I've got to start playing again so I can do that.
Yeah. And anyway, it's fun. That's what we do it for, really, isn't it? I mean, we've got no illusions now of becoming rock stars.
Oh
no stadium concerts for us.
And I will say this: one of the most amazing feelings in the world, though, is when you're playing with a band and everybody's there, and you're standing inside that wall of sound, and it's like part of it you're creating, but part of it this guy over here is creating, part of it somebody over there is creating, and it's collaborative, and it just envelops you. And there's nothing quite like that, you know?
Yeah, it lifts you up. I've been there. Sometimes at gigs, sometimes in rehearsals, and you just think, oh wow, I just wished I could be here forever. You know, this point. You know, everything is just working. I mean, that's why I love being with 1912, because when this happens so often, you know, it's not just once in a while. Almost every rehearsal, there's a moment where suddenly we're all tuned, and we're not even playing a tune that we know. We're just jamming,
Right.
and everything sort of coalesces into something, and it's wonderful. And then sometimes, of course, you come down from that, and then the next time you play it, it's never the same, is it? So you go to record it in the studio, it's never the same. You never catch that. You know, it's a bit like Tenacious D. You know, this isn't the song, this is a tribute. You know, we forgot the song. But I love those moments, and when they happen in front of an audience, even better.
Oh yeah.
It's just it's what we do it for, I think, isn't it? What we're going for.
I think, you know, I funny thing is I can't remember the exact quote, but I read something from Robert Fripp that he basically said the same thing. He said that's what you do it for, is because of that type of moment and that type of feeling. And it's like, wow, he gets that too, which is kind of cool, you know.
And you can start to understand why people are still going out there doing grueling tours into their 70s and 80s, you know, and they should have just hung up their guitar and gone off and done a bit gardening, you know, because they love it so much. It's what they live for, and I can quite understand. And while I'm sad to lose some of these people, it's great to see that many of them have been gigging right to the end. You know, Jeff Beck, you know, he was.
Oh, I know. He was on tour.
You know, admittedly, I suppose it was a bit sudden. He had an illness, and it was a bit sudden. But
right.
Ronnie James Dio, you know, he was sort of. I don't think he was still touring, wasn't he, when he died?
They were on tour, and he had really bad stomach pain and had to go to the hospital, and they diagnosed him with stomach cancer. So they canceled the rest of the tour, and then he never got back out. I think he was alive for several months going through treatment before he passed away. But and then, you know, the metal side of things. Are you familiar with a band called Manila Road?
What was the name, sir?
Manila Road.
No, I don't know those.
Yeah, they were sort of a power metal band, kind of, but. And now I'm drawing a blank on the gentleman's name, which is a shame, because Mark Shelton. We used to email back and forth all the time, and he was super nice. And he was on stage and collapsed on stage and died.
Wow.
Yeah.
But he wasn't very old, though, was he?
No, I think he was probably, I don't know, late 50s, early 60s, kind of my age. So, yeah, I don't think he was that old.
That's a young age to die, isn't it, these days?
Yeah, it didn't seem that young before. It suddenly seems young.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I turned 60 a couple of weeks ago. And
that's right. When's your birthday?
Mine was 30th of Jan. So
13th of January. Mine's 14th of February. I turned 60. So yeah,
that's it. Yeah, you see, we're more like. Do you remember me saying a while ago, saying we're Who babies because we were born in 1963? You know, the year Doctor Who started.
Oh yeah.
That's.
But we're older than Doctor Who.
Yeah, just a bit. That's it.
November, something like that.
That's it. It was the autumn. November, or December that it started. Yeah. It's quite funny actually, because when they had the 50th anniversary program, my son had just been born, so he's sort of 50 years behind me. And,
nice.
Watching the 50th anniversary and having to nip out halfway to buy more nappies or something, because more baby food or something. I can't remember what. And I was thinking, oh wow, 50 years, and we're still watching Doctor Who. Amazing.
And
But I'm
that
not going
was-
to talk about Doctor Who because I know we can talk about that all day, can't we?
Oh yeah, no kidding. Yeah, and you know what? I never realized. I never thought of before. I forgot how you're into science fiction. I'm gonna send you a PDF of my book, Wizard Song, which I think you will appreciate because
All right.
number one, it's science fiction. It's very space opera ish, but it's also about a bunch of guys that are a progressive rock band. So
Oh, excellent.
yeah,
That's something you don't see too often in science fiction, is it?
no, and the funny thing about that was I actually first wrote it when I was 12 years old as a comic book because I had just discovered prog rock and I was big into Marvel Comics, Star Trek, and prog rock, and so I combined them all into this, and it's sort of changed over the years, but it's basically the same story still to this day. But yeah,
I had no idea you did sci-fi. I know you do the horror stuff and the sort of Lovecraftian stuff, but I didn't realise you did sci-fi as well.
yeah, I do some sci-fi as well, and I'm actually working on the sequel to that one, but I've been working on it for a couple of years now, and we'll see when I get back to it. It's been a few months since I've been on it, but yeah. So, but I'll send you that when we get off of here.
Brilliant. I look forward to that. That'd be great. Yeah.
Yeah, you can check it out. I hope you like it. But so, is there anything else you wanted to chat about, or?
I think we covered a lot, haven't we? It's
Yeah, I think so. And it's getting late where you are. You're probably.
yeah, I can't see the time. It must be about 10:30 or something. Yeah,
Something like that. Yeah. So I think I will probably let you go, unless there's some final words you want to get out there. Let's not say final words. Closing thoughts.
Yeah. Just thank you very much for involving me in Music Street Journal. It's been fun. I wish I could do more. I will try and do more and get more reviews out there. I hope you'll be hearing another 25 years celebrating the 50th anniversary of MSJ.
I doubt that.
It could happen.
Well, I guess.
60 years.
And thank you for being part of it. Absolutely love it, and thank you for us becoming friends. I mean, that's just the coolest thing.
Yeah, and maybe you say you want to get back to playing music. Maybe we could collaborate on something at some point.
Yeah, that would be fun. Thank you for giving me another reason to get back to playing. I've got my bass sitting up in my wife's office. I got to bring it down.
Yeah, you've got to have it out to hand. I mean, my little bass, that's why I brought that down. That's in my bedroom on the wall. I pick it up any time I like, and it's ready to go. The problem with the other bass is it's in a case. So I've got to make a conscious decision to go out and grab it.
Oh, yeah.
And we were talking about cheap guitars as well a while ago. I've got a beautiful Washburn nylon strung acoustic, single cutaway acoustic. They didn't make many of them. It's absolutely gorgeous. It sounds okay, but I never touch it. It's in a case. Every time I touch it, it's scratched. It's not a very good finish, and I'm frightened to touch it. So I've got a cheap 3/4 size Duke guitar that my brother gave me, and it's identical to the ones we used to have hundreds of at school. They dish them out in music lessons, and it's fantastic. It does everything I want. It sounds great. It's beat up, so it doesn't matter if it gets more beaten up, and I just grab it and play. So that's the answer. You don't matter how good your guitar is, if it's not there, you can't just grab it.
Well, your thing about the Washburn, when you were telling me about that, you know what I flashed on? Nigel Tufnell. With his guitar.
Oh, yes.
Don't touch it. I shouldn't have even shown it to you.
Yeah. That was brilliant. That's it. It's still got the price ticket on, hasn't it? Something.
Yeah. He won't even touch the guitar. He won't even play it. It's like he just bought it to look at.
I'm trying. I keep saying I'm going to sell that one. It's got a hard case, beautifully lined hard case, and everything. But even though I don't like playing it, I just don't want to get rid of it. Because it's drop dead gorgeous. It's beautiful, most beautiful looking guitar I've ever seen. I really need to cut loose, let it go.
I know, but talking about the wounds on it too. I know guys who think a guitar isn't a guitar until it's got a bunch of dings and nicks and
Yeah,
the battle scars.
that's right. And it's like with cars. I remember buying. I've never had a new car, but when I got one particular car the one time that was absolutely immaculate, I was so upset when it got its first scratches. And since then, I've just bought nails that are already covered in scratches, and I don't care, because
Yeah,
it's there to be driven.
exactly. That's the point. I've got a car my car is 25 years old and has 235,000 miles on it, but it keeps going. It gets you from point A to point B. What's the problem?
That's it. That's what it's all about. Yeah. And
Yeah.
you're probably being more environmentally conscious by driving that than by constantly buying a new car every 5 years.
Oh, exactly. So, yeah. But yeah, you and I have so much in common, John.
Yeah. Amazing. It was like separated at birth.
There you go, my friend. Anyway, I'm gonna let you go. But anybody who's been watching, if you want to check out Music Street Journal, it's at musicstreetjournal.com, and all the books are at lulu.com/spotlight/strange sound. And John, why don't you give websites for your music projects?
Oh, right. Yes. I should have rehearsed that one and prepared it. So 1912, we're on 1912.com, but 1912 in letters, not numbers. And Omen Opus are on omenopus.com, I think. And if you want to hear my old demos or anything like that, or read a bit more about me, I'm on johnpierpoint.com. There's others. I've also got some sites for my old bands as well. If you go to theearthmovers.co.uk, you'll find everything about that group that I was in the 90s, the old pub rock band. And I've kept the website going, and that's still my default email address as well. I still use earthmovers.co.uk for everything, even though the group hasn't been going for decades now. It's I don't want to let go.
Send me those links. Make sure I have them all, because when I post this on YouTube, I'll put those in the description too. So
Brilliant. Okay, yeah, and that way you'll get the right ones as well, not the ones I've remembered.
Are some of yours .co.uk or?
Yeah,
a couple of them.
co.uk. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
all right. Well, thank you very much, John, and it was really, really nice meeting you like this for once. And let's try not to be strangers. Let's try to do this kind of thing once in a while. This will be fun.
That's great. Thanks for having me on, Gary.
All right. See you, John.
Good luck with MSJ. Bye.
Thank you, my friend.